Good morning, students. We're going to study a very interesting poem today. Before we begin, I would like to, bring out a very novel idea. I call it novel because we are programmed to think differently from what we are going to talk today. All of us have been told by our teachers, by our parents, by our peers, by our environment to always do something, always be in action, to create, to bring out something great, to do something about our life, always to make something which is visible to everybody and which shows that we are successful. And this thought has been put in our minds so strongly that under any circumstances, under any kind of situation, we always are prompted to be in action. And another very important thing, we always associate this action with youth, with creativity, with young age. And whenever we talk, whenever we say, people ask us to please be quiet and don't be still, be calm, etc. We associate that with people with older age, because we cannot imagine somebody younger being quiet and not doing anything. Strangely, in this poem that we're going to do today, Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda, is about the fact that it doesn't matter what the age group is. It doesn't matter what you're doing in your life to earn a livelihood or any kind of creative activity. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are taking pauses and you are being quiet and reflecting on what you have done so far. Pablo Neruda is a pseudonym for a very brilliant person. His name was Ricardo Neftali Reyes Basialto. He was a Chilean poet, diplomat, and a politician. He started writing at the age of 13, and he was pretty famous with all his poem at that young age. Then in 71 he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and his range was pretty vast. He wrote autobiography, he wrote beautiful love poems, he wrote political manifestos, he wrote historical epics. Huge range, and he was also very active politically. It's around September 73 he was very ill, and he was before that he was very close to those people who was connected politically. In September 73 he fell very ill, and after that he was hospitalized, and during that time only there was a political coup. So this person who took over the reins of the politics that time, his name was General Augusto. So it is believed that in hospital he was injected with something by the doctor himself, which caused his untimely death. So Ricardo Neftali, that is Pablo Neruda, in this poem that we're going to do today, talks about being quiet in this age, in this time when all and everybody is telling us to rush, to make, and to do, and to show, and to achieve. Now let's see what he's trying to tell us. Now we'll count to 12 and we will keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. 3 things I found very interesting in this stanza. Number 1, he talks about let's count till 12. Second, he talks about that let's not speak any language. And third, he talks about that we should not move our arms so much. Now, what is the significance of the number 12? It could be 12 months of the year. It could also be the 12 digits on the clock. it seems to me that 12 digits on the clock is more viable, because what we're doing in this rush to achievement and to success, we are duplicating these 12 digits and we're making it 24 hours. So the clock says 12 digits, at least for 12 digits you work, and the rest of the 12 digits you rest or introspect. But here what we are trying to do is that we are duplicating those 12 digits, making it 24 hours, and 24 hours we are on the move. All of you know there are cities in our country which never sleep. So when we're talking about cities which never sleep, then what are we talking about? Are we talking about the buildings? Are we talking about the parks and the cinema halls and the eating place? No, we're talking about people. So when people who don't sleep, people who don't rest, sleep is, symbolic. That is resting. People who don't sleep, who don't rest, then what are they doing? Achieving. They're in this mad rush to achieve. That is what we are trying to say here. So 12 is symbolic. The number 12 is symbolic. We are asking people, stop. Even if you dedicate 12 hours in a day to do work, to achieve something, to be in action, the rest of the 12 hours, please stop and introspect. Now, what is the meaning of the word introspect? Here the word means that you need to observe your actions. You need to observe your thoughts and analyze what you have done so far. I have had students in the classes that I don't know, ma'am, that why we need to study history and that which has happened already and that which is already done, why we need to look into it and why is it so important? It's very important. Because if we do not see what we have created, then we will be caught in the mindless cycle of creating the same mistakes and the same things which creates problem for us. So it is very important for us to wait, evaluate, and then proceed. So this evaluation can only happen when we keep our mind calm and quiet. We look within ourselves, we try to introspect. Then only it is possible for us to understand that what we have already created and what is being manifested now, is this what I want in the long term? Or do I need to change myself in some way, my thought, my action, my attitude? So the next series of events which I will manifest will be a little different from what I have done earlier. So how do we know all this? We cannot know all this if we are in a mad rush of one activity after the other. So that is what Neruda says, stop. Wait, watch, then move. Second point, he talks about that let's not there be any language. Now that's again a very different thought, because we always want to learn different languages, and multilingualism is such an important thing for all of us. And the more languages we know, the more connected we feel with each other. But language also has a problem. It can be a barrier. My mother tongue is different, yours is different, your friends is different. So when we all start talking in different languages, we focus on our differences. So here the poet is trying to bring together the oneness and the unity, and that can happen only with one common language. And that's the language of silence. So he says that let's not speak any language for a change, let's speak the language, if required, if any, of silence, because then what I'm saying, what you are saying or not saying is the same. Let's unify. Silence will unify us. Then third point, which is very important in the first stanza, he talks about let's not move our arms too much. What do you mean by moving arms? Moving arms means instructing, arguing, desperately trying to put forward your point. No need at all, for some time at least. So stop and see what you have done, then decide to move ahead. First, evaluate what you have already created. See, you are not existing in a vacuum. You already have done some action. All of us, good, bad, indifferent, some action have been done. So it has yielded result also, and those results you are living at the moment. So wait, evaluate those results and understand if this needs to be carried on or some changes need to be done. And then only move ahead. So wait and stop. In the first stanza, there are a few figures of speech or literary devices that have been used. You need to focus on them. The first one is assonance. Assonance is when we're using a vowel sound in more than one word. So the line which says, now we will count till 12, not move our arms so much, is assonance. The vowel sound O and A. E is called A, vowel, okay. The next one is anaphora, where the two consecutive lines begin with the same word. So we have two lines in this first stanza. One is let's not speak any language. Then we have let's stop for a moment, second. So let's is anaphora. The third one is alliteration. The repetition of a consonant sound in the first one. So we will, wa. So the word we will has two consecutive consonant sound. That's called alliteration. So we have three figures of speech in the first stanza: assonance, anaphora, and alliteration. Let's move ahead and let's see what the poet talks about in the second stanza. Interesting, very interesting. It could be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in sudden strangeness. Fisherman in the cold sea would not harm the whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. The first line of the second stanza talks about the exotic moment. The fourth line of the second stanza talk about strangeness. So what is exotic and what is strange? Exotic means rare, which we haven't seen before. It's very rare and very good and very beautiful. What is it? The exotic moment is that moment when we stop rushing, when we switch off our engines, of motor cars, of our mind, of our thought, of our feelings, of our emotions, of our calculations, of our suggestions, we switch off. That is the exotic moment. So the exotic moment is that when we are not rushing from one target to another, then to another, then to another. No, quiet. That is the exotic moment. When the engines are switched off, engines of action, the physical engine of cars, of motors, of aeroplanes, of ships, not only that, but the engines of action. Mindless action. We will move forward in the poem, and there's a very interesting line. He talks about activity and inactivity. We'll come to that, but we'll come to that later. So here he talks about that switch off the engines, means engines of anything, or the physical engine as well as the engine which is fitted within us, which is constantly on the go. Switch it off and feel the strangeness, because till now you have not felt the strangeness of silence. So he's asking us to feel the strangeness of silence. Exotic moment, strangeness. This is the catch in the second stanza. Then he moves forward and he talks about that the fisherman should not harm the whales, and the salt gatherers will not hurt himself anymore. Now, fisherman hunting the whales talks about excessive fishing, harming the environment, because we need to eat, we need to survive, we need to feed ourselves, our loved ones, etc. Lot of things we do, and in the process we harm the environment in some way or the other. Stop that. Now again, somebody can turn around and ask you to say that we will starve to death, will not create anything. No, he's not saying that. He's not saying that at all, that you starve to death and you don't create anything. He's saying that if you have harmed the whales till now, stop and see how much damage has been done. Let nature revive itself. Let nature heal itself, then start again, or then do it with a little modification. So the harm is minimal, is minimized. Then he talks about the salt gatherer not harming themselves. Salt gatherer means who? It actually would not, we don't gather salt anymore, like we have our technology and machines and all. So salt gatherers are those people who are trying their own ventures, and in the long run harming their mental stability, harming their physical stability, and harming their spiritual stability. By what? By not introspecting, by doing mindless action, by not understanding the result of their action, by not paying attention to the result of the action, because there is a target of survival. All of us have only one target to fulfill and make, which is elusive. It's not that we have achieved it and after that it's a break and we are fine and we can relax and then we can enjoy ourselves and nothing more. No, the target of survival is an elusive target, because the moment you think you've reached there, you realize you haven't, and you have to do something else to reach that further. So it goes on and on and on and on. So a target of survival, our greed to have more, makes us harm ourselves. So here the poet is not only worried about that what you're going to do to the others by your mindless action, he's also worried about what you're going to do to yourself. How are you going to harm yourself? What are you doing to harm yourself? He's concerned about that also. Because that is more important. If your mental health, if your emotional health and your spiritual health is fine, then you can create beautiful things for others also. General Augusto must have been very disturbed because he made a doctor who actually gives life to inject something poisonous in Pablo Neruda. He must have been very sad. He must have been very ill, which he never realized. Moving on to the next stanza. Now, okay, before I forget, what is the expectation of the poet in the second stanza? The expectation of the poet is that we should not speak unnecessary things. Speech which is not productive, speech which is harmful not only to others but to also ourselves. Do not move. Do not move. I recalled. So often we say in the class, don't talk, don't move, but that is control. Here he is not asking that somebody else will control you. Here he is saying that you have the time to reflect. If you do not talk, if you do not move, then you are reflecting, not controlling. So let's not move, let's meditate, let us introspect. Introspect on what? What we have already done. He is not asking you to vegetate. He is not asking you to stop. He is just asking you that please, whatever you have created till now, good, bad, worst, better, best, great, just think, analyze, and then modify your actions for the next set of results which you will have in your life and others. And this also will create sound mental health. We need to be very, very stable. We need to be very, very at peace in order to be creative and productive. We have alliteration in the second stanza also. We would, sudden strangeness, his hurt hands. So it's wa, sa, and ha. So the first sound, the first letter, the sound of the first letter is similar, it becomes to alliteration. Let's move on to the third stanza and let's see what he's talking about here. Those who prepare green wall. Third stanza actually is a call, is a shout out to people who are planning who are planning taking over of land, taking over of mind, taking over of people. You see, the war that we see, the dishum that we see, the guns and the tanks that we see is not the only war that is fought. There are many kinds of wars, and Pablo Neruda is talking about all those kinds of wars which we fight, which we would like to fight in order to control. He's saying those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, this is very easy to understand. Victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes, walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Okay. Green wars, fishing in the deep sea, mining, deforestation. This is a war. We're fighting a war against nature. But we are foolish enough not to understand that these kind of wars we can never win, because nature will get back to us some way or the other. If not today, some years down the line, our future generations will have to bear the brunt. Whether we like it, we don't like it, we approve, we don't approve, doesn't matter. If you have or if you are waging a war against nature, it's going to come back. So Pablo Neruda very categorically says, stop it. Then he talks about the war with gas, biological warfare, war with fire is the conventional war. All these wars need to stop. Then he says something very interesting we see here. He asks everybody to wear clean clothes. What is the symbol of clean clothes? How does this phrase clean clothes come in wars? Like, how is it connected? Clean clothes here means a new approach. You have a certain mindset when you decide to fight a war. You have a certain mindset when you decide to kill somebody or harm somebody and take the territory or take whatever you want. You are coveting. Change that. Have a new approach. Not only you, your enemy needs also to wear the new clothes. Have a new approach, new thought, new feelings, new actions. Then he says, be quiet and stand in a shade. So here he is saying, break your boundaries with your enemies. Let there be no enemies at all. Be with your so-called enemy, wearing the same clean clothes, be in the shade and don't talk. Be silent, be calm. So, what are the 2-3 things he's asking us to tell us? He is telling us, number one, to have a new approach. Not only you, even the person you are fighting with or you are coveting something should have a new approach. So, all of you please wear clean clothes. Break the boundaries, stand together, be one. Don't even think that I belong to this section or I belong to this region, I speak this language. No, please break and please merge all the boundaries. We do not require a boundary. We are human, same category. Please do not have any boundary. And all of us needs to meditate and introspect. Because we cannot have a better world. No way can we have a better world if we are not sound here. If we are not calm here, if we are not quiet here, if we are not meditative. Now here meditation doesn't mean you have to put on a Zen music and close your eyes and meditate for 10 minutes, 40 minutes. No, here he doesn't talk about that kind of a meditation at all. Here he talks about the meditation of reflection. Observe yourself, your thoughts, your actions, analyze them, so that the next series of actions are productive and better than what you have already created. In the third stanza, we have alliteration as a figure of speech, wars with wawa, clean clothes, ka, alliteration. Okay. Then assonance also we have in the third stanza, the use of the vowel o. Victory with no survivors, would not put on clean clothes, walk about with their brothers. So it's O. The vowel O has been repeated multiple times. And there's another figure of speech, repetition, because the word war has been done. Green wars, war with gas, war with fire. So the word war has been repeated a few times. So the figure of speech repetition is also here. The literary device repetition has already been used in the third stanza. Let's move ahead and see. What I want would not be, should not be confused with inactivity. So this is what I was telling you in the very beginning, that nowhere does he say that stop doing what you are doing and just be quiet. Oh, this is a good use for people who are slackers. This is a good excuse for people who are sloths. This is a good excuse for people who doesn't know how to do anything and just relax and have a good time at the expense of others. No, that is also an action. Because I am sure that action has come out because you have not been introspective. So he doesn't say that. So he says in the third stanza, what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If you were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once would do nothing, perhaps a huge silence would interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. As I said, he's not asking us to be inactive. Please continue your activity, but let that activity be well thought of and then execute it. That is what he's telling you. And here in this fourth stanza, he's also telling you about this, as I told you earlier, that the target to survive, which is elusive. Because once we reach that target, we know we have another target to accomplish. And strange, how we all think, especially people with power and people who have the power to destroy and create, we all have, but on a larger scale. I'll survive and I'll survive alone. But again, that's not possible, because if you're surviving, you need to have people around you, people to support your actions, people to aid your survival, even in the basic ground level. But somehow we don't think that. So how did that thought come? That thought came because we meditated on our action and we introspected on our action. He says, I do not want a truck full of death. In any case, I do not want a war. The dead body of civilians and soldiers in a truck, I do not want. And this thought, I think, is coming to Neruda from the fact that he was very active in the political scenario. And he saw how things are done. He saw how things are created. He saw how things are manipulated. So I'm sure this is just not a poet's thought which has come after watching TV or reading some books. It is a thought which has come out of watching the reality. I told you he was a Chilean poet and a diplomat and a politician. It has come out of something which he has experienced. So this is telling you that I do not want a truckload of dead bodies. No, sorry, that's not what I want. Never. Remember, when he was ill, as I told you, there was a coup in the country and he was murdered because, I remember a very interesting line. Just after the coup, General Augusto's people was looking for him, in places where he was supposed to be. And there were soldiers all over the house and wherever he was supposed to be. He was not there. So he says a very famous line. He says, I don't remember the exact quote, but the thought goes like this, that the most dangerous thing that you will find here is poetry, nothing else. How can poetry be dangerous? Poetry be dangerous because it can change mind. It can change your thought. So when you change your thought, you change your mind, you change your reality. When General Augusto was looking for something very dangerous, maybe some gun or something, I don't know, explosive, what he was looking for, all he could find was manuscripts of poetry, which I'm sure is more dangerous and more lethal than any gun or any explosive man has ever created. That is what he said. Then he says that in the fourth stanza, he talks about that be silent, and you feel very strange in this silence because it has not happened before. And this silence is important because without this, you are threatening your own life. You are inching towards your own destruction. To stop that slow movement toward destruction, which I'm sure you also don't want, but still you are inadvertently going towards that. Please stop. Please introspect, be calm, be quiet, be still. Because you are threatening yourself with death. That death which you want to escape at any cost. Isn't it? That's the reason you have a target of survival. Because you want to escape death. But through your actions, even though your target is survival, through your actions you are inching towards it. How? By mindlessly doing activity. You're destroying yourself and everybody around you. You're inching towards the same life-threatening death. That is what he talks about. So he says that be quiet, be silent, be present in this strangeness of silence, so that your inching towards death is slowed down or even stopped. That is what the poet talks about. And he says that when you give yourself the time to introspect, you somehow also kill the sadness which is in you. Where is the sadness coming from? You are not supposed to be sad because you are achieving a lot of things and you have all the material comforts, you have got all the glory that you have ever aspired for. You have got all the happiness that you're fighting for the happiness, you're gaining your happiness, your material happiness. So where is the sadness coming from? The sadness is the sadness of seeing your deeds being repeated, mindless deeds being repeated and giving you the same result. That is the sadness. So the silence will stop the sadness. If you want the sadness to move out of your life, then silence is required. It's like this. You decide to achieve something. Suppose you decide to get a big house, a huge lavish house with all the modern facilities and amenities. You get the house. Next target is that in order to live in that house, you need a lot of other things also. You need a good decor, you need good electronic gadgets, you need a lot of other things, you need manpower, your staff to manage the house. So after the house, that you have got that. After you've got that, okay, fine, you need good holidays, you need to have your holidays in a good destination, etc. The third thing is that. So when did you stop to enjoy that house you slogged all your life for? When did you stop to enjoy the staff and the amenities you acquired for the house? No time, because there's another target to do. So when you hop from one target to another and to another and to another, then you don't have the time or the inclination to stop and think and to analyze and rectify. Rectification is also required if you want to better your life. You don't have the time for that. That creates the sadness. So when you are calm, you're quiet, you're silent, that sadness, the circle of sadness will break. Let's move ahead. The fourth stanza, the figures of speech for the fourth stanza, alliteration. We were single-minded. So minded is not the word. So single, sir, we were. Enjambment is that when one idea is moved from one line to another without a punctuation. So in enjambment, we have an example here. And for once could perhaps a huge silence from there of threading ourselves with death. So a thought moves from one line to another and to another. The entire line is this. You can make a note. And for once could do nothing. Perhaps a huge silence would interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So the entire 3-4 lines here is the example of enjambment. Now let's come to the final stanza to what the poet is trying to say here. He says, perhaps the earth can teach us when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. And I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. The final thought the poet wants us to understand or concentrate is from the earth. We are approaching winter. So the first category, the first characteristic of winter is that everything seems quiet and dead. Dormant, the seeds are underneath the earth. So it's all over, done, it's dead. No. Even though the seeds and life seem to be under the earth, yet it is actually waiting to spring out in the spring season. So, such a beautiful connection that when you are reflective, when you are analyzing, when you are thinking, when you are meditative, when you are introspecting, you are not dead. You are not dead. You are not inactive. You are in preparation of something great to come. Just like the seeds which are underground in winter and they are preparing to burst forth in the coming spring. Similarly, when you are meditative, when you are quiet, when you are introspecting, you are waiting for your spring. When those ideas, when those thoughts will germinate and give you a much, much, much better life. The poet in the last stanza talks about counting till 12. So we start with that thought of counting till 12 and we end the poem with the thought counting till 12. So again we count the digits in the clock, which we are duplicating and trying to rush. All the 24 hours we have in our hand per day, we are rushing to create. Don't do that. At least 12 hours spend in reflection and breaking boundaries. Maybe then you will not be hurtling and rushing towards the life-threatening deaths. Maybe then we will not have truckload of dead people. Maybe then we will be able to wear clean clothes. Maybe then we will be able to not hurt the whales. Maybe then we will be able to reflect on the wounds we have on our hands because we have gathered salt for so long. Try it. The symbols in this poem, there are many symbols which have been used in the poem. As I told you, the first one we have discussed quite a lot, that's the number 12, which talks about the time that you're using, wasting or reflecting, however you're using it. Whales is again nature. We are talking here about nature and how we are trying to harm nature in our effort to, again it's a war against nature. So we are in an effort to create something great for ourselves, we are fighting against nature. Then we have man gathering salt. Again, mindless activity for our selfish achievement and which is harming ourselves actually. Because we are compromising on our rest, on our sleep, on our relaxation and a lot of other things also. So that is harming our health and also our sound mental condition. Green was again war with nature. Wars with gas is biological warfare. Wars with fire is the conventional warfare with guns and tanks and whatever, grenades. Victory with no survivors. Always remember, if you are powerful and if you are able to wage a war, the other person, your enemy, again has the same resources or the same power to wage a war against you. So it cannot be that you are fighting alone and you are the lone and you are the victorious one and everything is okay and everything is in la la land. It doesn't happen like that. When you are fighting, the other person is also getting ready to fight or fighting. So it's actually a no-win situation. So victory without survivors. And the last one is dormancy and hibernation. Even nature, I know, I always keep telling my students that nature is the biggest teacher. Rousseau, the very famous philosopher, educator, educationist, he talked about let the student be in nature without the supervision, and let nature teach the child whatever the child requires, and the child acquires all his skills from nature. That is an extreme thing. Now we can't have it in our times. Totally unsupervised education is not possible, of course, the system that we are following. But then some parts of natures are very relevant, and we should pick up from there, because it gives us very hard hitting lessons, and which are very relevant. One of them is talked about here, talks about dormancy and hibernation. When you are hibernating, when you are waiting, when you seem to be dormant, actually you are not. A lot of things are happening within you, because after this you will be back in action. After this you will be creating. After this you will be doing something. The poem ends on the note by the poet saying that I am going to count till 12, and I am going to leave you, and I am going, and you reflect. So the poet moves out of the scene, and he makes his readers, his people, to reflect on what they have done so far, and also to plan on what they will do later. The poet is moving out of the scene and is letting the thought of counting till 12 remain with his audience. Similarly, you also count till 12 and see where you're going, what you have done, and how to modify your action for a better future. Thank you, students, and this is the end of the poem.